So Ted, tell me how much square footage is in this house?
So in the living space, there's 3,468.
Okay.
And then total, it's about 4,800. So, well, the first thing that came to mind was the lot, where we're going to build, what do we like, and we wanted to be out in the hill country, but at the same time, knowing that there's not a whole lot of flat lots out here. So then we immediately started thinking about the type of house we would build. So for a long time, we were thinking we were going to have to build something with a walkout basement. But through the design process and working with the architect, we were able to shoot some, the topo on the lot, and we figured out that we could excavate some out in the front and then, get the house
level
out. And then that way we didn't have such a big drop off the back here.
Okay.
But first initial thought was it's going to be a big headache and it's going to be very difficult to coordinate all this stuff. But once we got into the process and then working with you all and the architect, came together pretty smoothly. Sure. So my mind was made up when we met at the Starbucks that day, and as you and I were talking through the process, and you gave me very detailed process on how we'd start with an estimate, and that was the first thing we're gonna do is start with an estimate. Let's see if we can even build this thing, and then after that we'll move on from there into the management and the coordination of the project. So I felt very, very much at ease after our first conversation.
Oh, well, good.
Mm-hmm. And we had visited with some other custom home builders. They didn't really give us the attention we were looking for. They weren't able to explain, all the charges that they were going to charge me for building and coordinating the project. And then, one of the biggest things is that the house would have just been, we would have had to pay too much for the house, relying on somebody else to do the work for us.
So it's 100%. What I always tell people, 100% of my clients always say, there is no way that y'all could have probably purchased this home the way it was built if you had hired a custom home builder to do it. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, there's no way.
And I don't believe we would have been able to have the personal touches either, because I come from a construction background, and I know that anytime an owner makes a change, usually that means it's a charge. Well, with this process, any change we made, there wasn't an upcharge or anything. We could, as long as it wasn't
a change order.
A change order, yeah. I mean, if we wanted to do a little bit different design and keep the same materials, for example, the archway we did, we had stone there and went to thin brick, so there was no charge for that. We just had the guys that we had subcontracted out do it. So I know if I would have went through a typical traditional method of using a general contractor to build a home, that would have been an upcharge, because it was a change to the plans.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing is, you being in construction, and we'll get into that in just a minute, is that you were able to have, because you were doing it in an owner-builder type of process, you were able to have a hands-on and everything in here. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. From the design itself all the way through the closing out of our project. So there were just, and I know we'll probably talk about some of the things we changed, but that we were just personally involved with how that was going to look and how it was going to come out. But the most interesting thing about it was that since we eliminated having to go through we're relying on somebody else to, how do I say this correctly, but to explain the vision we had, we didn't have to translate any of that. So it was directly from us talking to you and the subcontractors we had on site. When we would draw stuff on a napkin sometimes, and it would be, we would change it that day. So very involved and very quick response
And
time.
I think that was part of what we did. I know that we met several times before, during the design phase of the plans at least, figuring out sizes, depths, where things needed to be. Everybody has an idea of what they want in the house, but to be able to pull it together is the hardest thing, and then making those numbers fit into the budget. And so being able to walk you through the entire way with the plan and looking at the budget and the specifications on the house is what definitely helps get it to the final point of everything.
Sure. So during the design process, when they were going through the budget and trying to figure things out, and as we're swapping materials and just trying to get the most we could out of our particular budget, one of the things that you had helped us work on and kind of suggested was, in this day and age, a lot of folks aren't using their dining rooms a whole lot. why don't we make that dining room a playroom, and we can eliminate the playroom above the garage. So that saved us a big chunk of money. I mean, it was north of $50,000 at the time, you know, so that was a big help. But you continued to help us save money throughout the process. I can remember 2 instances specifically where, you know, we were running against the clock because we needed to finish the house. And Tiffany and I had wanted to do some upgrades on countertops and cabinets and those kind of things. And you had reached out to our HVAC contractor and said, look, there's got to be something we can do to help Ted and Tiffany save a little bit money on this so that they can put it back into the house in other areas. And sure enough, we consolidated a 2-unit system to a 1-unit system that was zoned. And that saved us, you know, around $10,000. That allowed us to upgrade the cabinets and the countertops. And
that continues to save us money because our electric bill's really low.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your electric bill right now.
We had a 1,800 square foot house before we moved here, and our electric bill is exactly what it was in that house, sometimes less.
even though
with the 3
done,
zones.
yeah,
With the 3.
with the 3 zoning.
The way we've set it up. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, with the, of course, you helped us throughout the design process, but the 3 components to that was the HVAC system 1, but your suggestion on polysealing all the openings and then spray foaming the roof. So now we've got a conditioned attic space, and the house is very energy efficient. No worries. So basically, kind of oversized the garage. When we built the garage at the time, I had a Toyota Tundra that was a crew cab. So I wanted to make sure it fit. But during the design process, and when I got the concrete guy on site, I actually made it. We just measured it today. It's 35 foot wide and it's almost 28 feet deep. So I could technically fit a boat in there if I needed to. The day we closed and moved in here, we had built-in equity, and we had enough equity now where we're actually under a contract to sell our home. And so once that goes through, yeah, we're gonna go right here in the same neighborhood. We're gonna go build another house, even the better house of our dreams. I'll put it that way. If we thought this one was the house of our dreams, well, the next one's going to be even better.
So let me go into that real quick, because I always tell people you're such a young couple. Tiffany, tell us what we found out. Once we had closed on the construction loan of the house, you had 2 children, and you found out.
I found out that we were having another one. So
there you go.
It was really important that this went smoothly and we could move forward with this to get this done as quickly and painlessly as possible.
And Ted, were you on the job site 24/7?
I was not. I was actually, at the time, I was traveling from California to Florida. So, yeah, that's another point that we should talk about, how easy it was. I mean, I was making calls.
As long as you're organized.
As long as you're organized. I mean, I was making calls to subcontractors, coordinating the job from 5 different states away. And then I can remember, I flew in from Alabama. It was noon. I drove out here at 1 o'clock. You met me out here, and the concrete had just got done being poured, and everything just went perfect.
It went perfect.
Yeah.
So it can be done even though you're not on the job site 24/7 and pregnant with other children.
With other children and working.
Yeah, we stacked up about every odd you could against somebody who's trying to build, and no problems.
Well, good. So you're really excited about doing the next home. Well, I'm so excited, and I hope I am able to help you with your next home.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for letting us in your home today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.